Hello, podcast world, fellow horticulturists, lovers of plants, gardeners, family, and friends. Welcome to Shrubby Buddies, the podcast, friends with woodies for garden goodies. I'm host Matt Guthrie.
And I'm host Tim Fleischer. Coming at you from Central Ohio, Zone 6B. We're just a couple of public horticulturists and certified arborists with experience in education, landscape design, gardening, retail, and wholesale.
So grab a drink, polish your pruners, dust off that kneeling pad, and let's get down to business. Hey, Shrubby Buddies, and welcome to this week's episode of Shrubby Buddies podcast. I am Matt Guthrie, joined with Timmy Fleischer. Tim, how are you?
Hey, Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there, Tim.
Good.
So, what's new? Anything?
Worked with you all day. Actually, not right with you, but today was a work day. It is not Sunday. We're recording.
Today was a work day, and we did work, just not together. But we are going to do some work together this week.
Yes, we are. We'll get some trees in the ground on Thursday.
Yeah.
Weather is getting nice and mild.
Cooling off a little. It's gonna turn a little dry again, but at least it's going to be cool.
Yeah, did some watering today. Got a few plug trays put in the ground of some Everillo Carex, so really brightened up a shady area.
Very good.
Yep.
I didn't get into too much. Planted a little bit, but I was, however, this past week up in the motherland. Went up to Michigan, did a little camping, hung out at the cabin, did a little exploring in the woods, Grass River Nature area. I always love going there and getting like inspiration from nature. So,
Big Daddy Mike and Mama Judy.
Yeah. So
good people.
Anyways, enough of that. We have a special guest this week on the podcast. We've got longtime friend of mine, known him for probably 25 years?
Yeah, I'd say
something like that.
Years,
yeah. Also my boss at my my other job. We have Bob Berbee from Leo Berbee Bulb Company and Dutchmill Greenhouse.
Yep.
Bob, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Great.
Well.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome to Matt's basement.
I am excited to be here.
We are
and chat
excited.
with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on here. I know we've talked about doing this. I'm kind of nervous to have Bob on here for some reason. I don't know why. It's kind of hitting me right now a little
Well, you
bit.
guys have known each other for how long?
A long time. I don't know.
I don't want to say off and on, but I mean closer now than we've ever been, probably.
Yeah, but so a little backstory on Bob and I. One of Bob's close friends when we were like middle school, high school age was the older brother of one of my best friends growing up. So inherently we kind of crossed paths with
hung out.
Yeah. Did a lot of riding four-wheelers and just
pond life.
Yeah. Fishing ponds, camping, all of that good stuff.
So you guys did not go to school together, but
he was a year ahead of me in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So he graduated in 2000.
That's right.
I was in 2001. So
it's not like one of these situations where you guys didn't get along and like you hated each other, but now you've come back around and realized you have the same interests and now you're good buddies.
Yeah, I would say
but
so.
But it wasn't that. You guys did get along.
We got along, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was, sorry. We got along, I don't know, just have known Bob for a long time.
Okay.
And then I went to work for him this year at Dutchmill Greenhouse. And
very happy to have you.
Oh, I'm happy to be there. It's been a lot of fun.
Matt loves it.
I do love it, yeah. And I just hope that I do a good job. So
you do a great job. If we could have 8 more guys.
Oh, stop it.
And
Ain't that the truth?
Tim's filling out an application
Ain't that the
too.
truth?
So
yeah, you're gonna have to open up a facility on the east side of Columbus.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe someday, right?
Someday.
But no, typically I'll come over here to record a podcast on Matt's work schedule, right? I'll come over here after you get off at Dutchmill on the weekend. And, you always have good things to say, great stories, full of energy. So,
well, one thing that Bob's done a really good job of is building a good team around him, and I'm not just saying that because you're sitting here, but everybody that I work with there is a lot of fun to work with,
That's what I understand.
much like at Dublin. So everyone's got their, like little quirky personalities, which makes it fun and interesting, plus you're working in a greenhouse and you're around plants all day. So, and then people that come in are, wanting to talk plants or wanting to learn about plants. So you have the opportunity to kind of inject knowledge into that. So that's always fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. So
we've got Bob here today, and what are some of the things we're going to talk about with Bob?
So we're going to ask Bob some questions about the Berbee Bulb Company and the history of, and some retail stuff, and maybe some pointers on planting bulbs, because it's that time of the year. People, if you weren't aware, just, some questions like that.
So it's good timing with bulbs, but I do want to start with the maybe the family history and how we got from there to here, and let's start with that.
Yeah. So Bob, just give us a rundown on the history of the Berbee family and Berbee Bulb Company, and kind of how you got to where we are today.
So it's a long story, so we'll try to make it quick. So the history of how we came to Ohio. So Dad was a salesman for his father, Leo Berbee.
Okay.
So he would come over for about 4 weeks at a time, 6 weeks at a time. So mind you, this goes back 50 years now. And Dad would come over and just push flowers. These big growers, you're just selling tulips, selling daffodils. And it got to a point where he realized that he needed to have a distribution place here in the United States. So he was, searching all over. And at that time, Ohio was one of the largest agricultural states, and it's still up there, but not what it was, 40, 50 years ago. So then and you've met my dad.
Oh, yeah.
He's insanely smart guy.
Yeah.
Super smart. So he realized, the product comes over from Holland to Jersey, and that usually takes almost about 2 weeks, and then it's only a day from Jersey to Ohio. And now, being in Ohio, we could source the entire United States within a week. So, we're right in between Cleveland and Cincinnati, big hubs there. So he thought of all that stuff all before he even, finally decided to move to Ohio. So fast forward a couple years. So he ended up parting ways with his brothers and just decided to have his own Leo Berbee Bulb Company in Ohio. And when I was born, he decided to move us over here officially. So just so you know, but Tim might not know this, I wasn't born in Ohio. I was born in the Netherlands. So, but they knew we were moving to America, hence the name Bob.
Yeah.
Right. So I was 6 weeks old. And then my sister, who was 3 years older than me, Marjolijn, which is a more traditional Dutch name. So packed us up. Goes back to the early 80s. And, so we have no immediate family here, so whenever we wanted to go see family, Mom was always excited to go back to Holland. We'd go back to Holland once or twice a year, growing up, and then, got further and further apart as we grew up, of course. So,
life happens. And that's like logistically a lot too, to like pack up kids and just go to Holland, right?
Yeah.
Like,
you can't just jump in the car and
go
down the street. No.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's a process.
I have two quick follow-ups to that.
Yep.
So had you been given more of a traditional name, what was on the list? Or do you not know?
Oh, geez, yeah. They have some American names like John and those types of things, but, they're Charles and, geez Louise.
So your dad is Hank.
Hendrikus, traditionally, yeah.
I like that.
Hendrikus.
Sounds powerful.
Yeah.
So that's Henk, right?
Yeah, you spell it Henk.
Hank.
But
not Hank.
Like, not H-A.
Oh, yeah, my Uncle Hank down the road.
No, it's Hank. Yeah.
Hank. Yeah, I love that. It's
Yeah.
kind of got that, like, that hockey vibe to it,
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
Your dad's fantastic. Your dad is very smart.
He's awesome.
Fantastic dude. He's a talker much like me, so I know it probably drives you nuts at the greenhouse.
It's a half an hour conversation every time.
When he sees me and his dad get together, he's probably like, God damn it. But yeah, so cool. So that's the story on Leo Berbee, but
And then the second follow-up question.
I'm sorry,
If you don't mind, real quick. And because this is something I've always been interested in. So Holland is kind of like the hub for growing bulbs, right?
I don't think it's just bulbs. I think it's just anything horticulture.
Horticulture?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that's very fascinating to me because you've got countries, very, very large countries in this world that have a lot of different geographical regions. maybe China, the United States is a big country, but why specifically is it so important to source bulbs from Holland?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So it's probably because we're below sea level or right at sea level. So the sandy soil is premium for growing conditions. The weather is phenomenal as far as it doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. It just has that optimum growing for bulbs.
So every single plant tag you read that says moist, well-drained soils, that's the well-drained soils?
Exactly, yeah. If we could just have nice sandy soil,
Okay.
yeah, that would be helpful. So.
Yeah, that's cool. That's kind of how it is up in Michigan, but it just gets really cold up there, But
yeah,
very well-drained, moist, sandy soils up there.
Right.
So
Very cool.
that's cool.
Thank you.
And maybe that's why Holland to Michigan.
maybe that's why
They grow a lot of bulbs up
do
there,
a lot of
and
bulbs up there,
Walter's Gardens is up there.
yeah.
So there's some, up there in Michigan. So I've never even really put that together. Maybe it all kind of goes to the soil conditions. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, as you guys know, and you guys talk a lot about it, everything is about the soil.
Yeah.
You could have the best plants in crappy soil, and you guys know what that's going to do. So,
Yeah.
So
Very cool. So that's kind of the Leo Berbee Bulb Company. But, Dutchmill Greenhouse is a part of the Leo Berbee Bulb Company.
That's
it's
right,
the retail side, the side that I am more familiar with. And it's kind of the side of the business that your heart, I think, is a little bit more attached to.
yes.
So kind of give us a little story on how this Dutchmill Greenhouse was spawned out of Leo Berbee Bulb Company and all of that.
So I graduated high school knowing that I was going to be working at the bulb company for the rest of my life. So I went to ATI up in Worcester, Ag Tech Institute. And at that point, retail wasn't even on our radar. So I was just going to learn more about plants in general. And I was still pretty novice when it came to plants. I had no clue what plants were. I mean, I was 18 years old. So anyways, I remember the day almost specifically. I was doing an internship out in Colorado, and Dad calls me up and says, hey, the land next door to the bulb company is available. If we buy this, we could have a retail store. And I'm 18 years old. I should have thought about it a little bit more. I'm glad we did it, of course. But I was like, yeah, Dad, that sounds like a great idea. And again, Dad being the numbers guy and thinking it very thoroughly through. He's like, because with the bulb company, we're only busy from, say, August, maybe September, all the way through April. So from April through September, we're kind of slow. Mm-hmm. And that's where the retail really kind of fit that open for just making more money, I guess, essentially. So
yeah, that's great. And at the time, I know when you guys were opening shop at Dutchmill, Marysville was pretty. Yeah, the city of Marysville was not what it is size-wise today, but you could feel that growth happening. But there weren't really any other garden centers. There was a small garden center at the local hardware store, and then the one on the south side of town, probably.
Yeah, they were there. Kreko's was still open when we first opened up.
Yeah, and I always forget about that. But I guess he was a nursery, but I also thought of him as a feed shop
more
too.
Feed store,
yeah, so more on that where you could buy your cattle feed and chicken feed and horse feed and dog food and things like that. But I always forget that he did run the nursery also. And
what was the place off of Cotton Slash called? Do you remember that?
Oh, so that was was it
Wilhelm was their last name?
Country Acres? Yeah, Country Acres was Bob Wilhelm, and I think Mike Epp worked with them. And then that closed shop, and then that greenhouse was Cuthbert's for a while, and then I'm almost certain Bonnie Plants is running something out of there now too.
It got big.
Yeah.
Is it safe to say that Dutchmill is the premier retail horticulture operation in Marysville, Ohio?
Yeah. Weren't we just rated the best?
Yeah, we got voted by the Union County, the citizens of Union County, as the best garden center in Marysville and Union County. So
booyah.
Yeah.
Take that.
Yes.
That's what I thought.
So if you're in Central Ohio,
and when did that take off? When you said you were 18,
so yes,
at ATI when Dad called.
Yeah, so we can go back to that story real quick. So we've been open for about 23, 24 years now.
Okay.
And of course, lots has changed over those 20 years. I mean, obviously with the town growing, and just we tore the house down that used to sit there. We built multiple greenhouses, so lots has changed. In those years.
So we're gonna I got a couple of retail questions for you since we're talking about Dutchmill right now, and then we're gonna circle back to some bulb questions. But so like with the retail thing, I know you and I have had conversations about it, but like what I always try and wrap my brain around with like someone like you who owns a retail shop is like this industry is constantly changing. Like the trends every year are different. So like what to you are like some of the biggest challenges like in the retail world, like going into a new year, like where's your mind at with error, from year to year? I'm sure that there's always going to be challenges, but like what are some of the big ones that really hit?
Right now, it's just you feel the need to constantly be changing. If it's what plants you're offering, the store setup, all those things, you feel like you're forced to be changing. Customers are coming in, what's new this year, and and as we know, like when we go to cultivate, they showcase all these new plants. They have a whole section just on new plant varieties. So you want to carry all those ones, but you still want to carry a lot of the traditional ones at the same time. So it's a guessing game. You just don't know what people are going to buy.
Yeah. I got a hard hitter regarding retail. So how do you find the fine line of, ordering, I don't know how it works, but a truckload of plants, and maybe there's plants on there that will sell because people will buy them because they love them, but you also know they're not the best plant for perhaps Marysville, Ohio. Where's that, like, where do you draw that line, and do you try to talk to your customers as well?
That's a great question because, there's a lot of plants that I wouldn't personally plant.
Like an azalea, for instance, or a rhododendron. Because when I worked at the Andersons in the retail side of things, they stocked so many rhododendrons and azaleas, and they sold them all.
Yeah.
And when I worked in shrubs, I was always just like, why are people buying this? These aren't doing that great unless they're putting in the work. So, but I know that they would sell them. So what's the like?
Yeah, that's a tough one. You just try to educate the customers. If it's again back to the soil, we would recommend some sphagnum peas, something acid loving. For your acid loving plants. So that's the hardest part is more signage. I mean, we try to educate the customer as much as we can, but you can't talk to every single person. It's impossible. But there's, perennials, same way. I wouldn't plant a lot of things, but people love color, so they're going to buy azaleas. If they're in bloom, they're going to sell.
Exactly.
So,
Azaleas for us here, for people listening that don't know, like we're in neutral to the more alkaline side of soil, and it's very heavy clay, just not the most optimal soil for growing like these azaleas and rhododendrons and the hydrangea macrophilias like we've talked about in the past. So I know that is a challenge, but working retail with you, like I see people come in and buy that stuff, and it's like, well, at the end of the day, like, you need to make money. So whatever, like I understand that, we've like knocked on burning bush before, and it's like, and I've sold burning bush to people, but like, if that's what they want and that's what they want to spend the money on, all you can do is maybe educate them, if you have the opportunity to, like, have you thought about a viburnum instead? But, in retail, it's all about making money. And if you're not going to sell them the burning bush and that's what they're dead set on, they're going to go down the street and buy it. So until there's things in place to eliminate some of that, like people growing like invasive species or whatever it may be. Yeah, it's just a challenge I think that will always be around.
Yeah, we don't necessarily are money hungry. We try to push if you are successful at gardening, you will enjoy it, you will continue to garden versus just doing the quick buck and make your money and leave, because we want these people to be gardening is fun, as we know, but it's a lot of work. So if they could be successful, and if it's from vegetable gardening or perennials or annuals, if they have good luck, they're going to buy more next year, and that we get a better experience from that.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
Now, this one's for my listeners. Bob, when a listener wants to come in and buy some things that are severely marked down, what's the best time of year for them to come into a retail garden center?
Right now,
Where are you at now, and when is it going to be 75%?
So coming up soon, at the end of the month, that's usually when we do blow out everything because we don't want to overwinter a perennial or a shrub.
No, it's not worth it, right?
No. Reagan in our perennial department has done a great job of, if things are past their prime, get them on a discount now and not waiting until the end of the season and slap a $2 sticker on there. So we'll do a $2 sticker in, say, whether that be July or August as soon as they're done blooming, because as we know with perennial, they don't look good after they're done blooming.
Yeah.
So just get them out. So
yeah, I know the last time I worked, I sold a cartload. Most people come in and they see the ratty looking perennials and won't even buy them because they look ratty.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, this thing's dead or whatever. And they'll a lot of times go after the good ones. But there was a lady that came in last time I worked, and she had a cart full of clearance perennials. She's just like, I love these things because I know, all I got to do is plant this and cut it back, and it's going to be a perfect plant.
That's
and
a true
it's
gardener
like,
right there.
Yeah, and it's like, if you know that, but the rest of the world doesn't know that, and that's fine. But yeah, so coming up, I know you and I have just had small discussions on.
Yeah, so we currently actually starting today, we started what we call the progressive sale. So every Monday it goes down another 10%. So today is 20%. Next Monday will be 30, 40, 50.
Yeah.
So
cool.
Yep.
Move them plants.
That's right.
Come on out to Dutchmill Greenhouse, y'all.
Yep. Check us out.
So cool. With retail, there were some other questions I had. I'm trying to remember here.
So I'm going to go back to the transitioning from wholesale to retail. So Dad, about 25, 30 years ago, would always do a blowout sale in his warehouse.
Okay.
So we have 2 seasons in the warehouse. We do a fall season, which we're in right now, and the spring season. So in the fall season, we're talking about tulips, daffodils, hyacinths, crocuses, alliums, fritillaria, all sorts of bulbs, right?
Yeah.
And those are all the ones that you plant now, and they'll bloom in the springtime. So at the end of the season, whatever he didn't sell, he would open it up to the public. Mind you, we didn't have retail at this point. So it was just bags and bags and boxes of tulip bulbs or whatever bulbs it might be. And so he would do the same thing in the spring season. And if I want to talk about the spring season, that would be more bare root type stuff. Hostas, daylilies, bleeding hearts, geraniums, phlox, peonies, all sorts of stuff. Also, with the summer flowering bulbs, which we would classify as the cannas, the caladiums, dahlias, do a lot of dahlias. So whatever didn't sell at the end of the season, he would open it up to the public. And that's what kind of snowballed into getting us into the retail.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And you guys
that makes sense.
Yeah.
You guys still do
We still do that. Not as much as we used to.
Yeah.
The fall is still really good. The spring has really tapered off because our clientele doesn't want to plant a bare root. Our clientele wants to buy a gallon hosta.
Bummer for them.
I know, right?
So I took advantage of the spring sale with the bare root stuff. And I mean, you can attest to it. I brought it back to work. I got some hostas, some Bernera, some Actia, some different things, brought it back, potted it up, stuck it in the hoop house, watered it. And I mean, in less than a week's time, everything was flushing out green and looks great. And I'm just like, anybody that wants it, here you go, some hostas. And so you guys still do the fall one then too?
So right now we basically have every single tulip that we sell in the wholesale, we'll have out in our retail.
Okay.
So it was 100 plus varieties of tulips right now.
Yeah.
So, but back to that, the spring sales. Yeah. What's frustrating, you could buy a bare root for $2, $3, $4, or you can buy a gallon for $15 or $20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And 10 times out of 10, they're buying the gallon hosta.
Yeah.
Instant gratification.
Yeah.
It came from the same plant. It's just a year older.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, I know people want instant gratification.
They do. Yeah.
Which there was a time that I was that way, impact perennial over anything else. Now I'm like, give me a little plug, you know what I mean, to stick in the ground because I know what this thing's going to do. But
also, I know Megan and I, when we go plant shopping, we buy a bunch of stuff because our eyes get real big, but then it just sits in the pot for a while. So you can't really do that with bare root. You have to get it in the ground.
You got to get
quick.
or cool or keep it cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So PPA, Tim and Megan bought a shit ton of stuff, and I was over there a week and a half, 2 weeks ago.
Not even.
And everything that they bought is still sitting there in its pots, and I'm like,
we're keeping it watered.
Yeah.
You are. I mean, it still looks fine, but it's just funny because it's been like 2 months ago now, but no big deal.
So do you have any insight into the whole process of plants coming overseas? Because I know that, let's take Brenna, for instance. She just traveled to Canada via Washington, and they gave her a hassle at the border because they thought she had apples.
Oh, yeah.
So taking that product across just from the United States to Canada. So I can imagine the issues that there could be bringing, plant material from Holland to the United States. Do you have any insights on that?
Just a little bit. I know everything is thoroughly clean. There's not soil on anything. So if it's anything from our bare roots to our bulbs, everything is thoroughly cleaned. We just like all the bulbs coming over from home, it's all pre-cleared. It's all pre-checked. So
okay.
The people that we work with, it's super simple for us. So it's pre-cleared. As soon as it gets in, we get it a day or two later.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, we've had zero issues.
Okay.
So,
very good.
Yeah.
So one more question on the retail side of things. Like, I don't even know how to word this question. I was trying to think of something to do for the listeners. If there was one piece of advice you could give the listeners to remember when they come in the garden center, or whether that be reading the plant tags or understanding, planning for all season, is there anything that you would recommend for a listener?
So what I always like to stress to the customer is get a plan. Don't just come in and buy whatever is in bloom. That's the worst thing that you could do. Just come in with pictures, and I don't care if you don't leave with plans, but at least have a plan going for all the years, all the seasons, like you keep mentioning, because there's more to the plants than it is just at that moment. If it's a hydrangea in bloom, or if it's, I don't want to use the word creeping phlox in front of you guys, but we sell a lot of creeping phlox because it's in bloom, it's in everybody's yard.
It flies off the shelves. I remember that from working at Anderson's. They'd put all the blocks of colors out on a table with a butterfly statue in the middle, and then it's just gone.
They just leave. They just literally walk away. But yeah, having a plan, because I've seen it so many times where a person will come in and their cart is just full of everything in bloom, and they're all perennials, and that's great for those 3 weeks. But the other 49 weeks out of the year, you got to think about those types of things. So winter interest is a big thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's overlooked a lot. Winter interest is.
Yeah, but I mean, half the year, your shrubs are without leaves. Your perennials are, dormant. I mean, winter interest is big.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I agree completely. It's easy to landscape for spring and summer.
Yeah,
I think. Fall and winter is where if you can nail that, the rest of it should come easy.
Yeah. And it's tough. Those are tough sales when you're like, oh yeah, well look at this gold cone juniper or a boxwood. There's no sex appeal to it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
But it's super important.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So cool. So we'll swing back to the bulb side of it.
Yeah.
You have any bulb questions for them? Were there any bulb questions that I know your wife, Megan, was all about?
But I think one of the big ones we wanted to talk about was the bulb shortage.
Oh yes.
Which I wasn't aware of because I'm not in that side of the industry. I just order the bulbs through our bulb order at work, and then I put them in the ground.
Yeah.
So
yes, this was by far. So we just came off one of the worst years of bulbs, followed up with the worst bulb harvest ever. And it was poor growing conditions. It was super wet. Bulbs didn't, get large enough, and it was just the worst bulb season ever. So, which came with a lot of uncertainty on what varieties we're going to get. They might be a little bit smaller. So there were a lot of issues with the bulbs this year. And it was a lot of scared and worried moments, but now it's not as bad as we thought. But it was waiting. What varieties are we going to get? So there's technically there's no shortage of bulbs. You just might not get what you actually wanted. So
I gotcha.
If it's a double fringed tulip, I mean, and we're talking about tulips specifically because that's our biggest selling bulb. There's so many varieties out there, but you just might not get the exact one that you wanted.
Did in turn the prices go up quite a bit on those?
So what we are doing is, unfortunately, a lot of our customers, we got quotes out and we're not jacking up the prices, but our prices are going up. So we might get a smaller size, but paying the same price.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that, in a year or two, we'll just laugh about this day or not remember it, but it's not good. So
Yeah, that's what's scary about plants is like it's just such a volatile industry too, because all it takes is a nasty drought like we've recently been in, and you're going to lose crops through that. Yeah. And whether it be like big agriculture or like what we're talking on the horticulture side of things, wells start drying up, ponds start drying up, so now you're running into irrigation issues to keep this stuff alive. And then like you talking about in Holland, I would assume that it was too much rain, probably like too cool of conditions. I don't know if like there was
both
like
of those,
yeah. So that sort of stuff, like it's just such a roller coaster of a ride, to get like, I don't think people understand what it takes to get a plant from like, being in the ground or in a pot or whatever to being in their yard, and like how much work actually goes into that. Cause people scoff at the like prices of these things. And it's like, yeah, but like you got to understand like that's, the labor of watering it every day, fertilizing it, planting it, up potting it, all of that stuff goes into it. So there is a lot to it. But yeah.
So another bold question from me, Bob. I'm a customer of yours. I love tulips. I've been planting tulips forever, since my grandma told me to start planting tulips, and they're fantastic, colorful, big flowers. But recently, where I plant my tulips, deer have moved in.
Yeah.
What are you recommending to me if I cannot use tulips anymore? What are some bulbs that can... I know that we talked about this last week. There's not necessarily a direct match to everything. There's not an exact copy of a tulip that's deer resistant, but what are some bulbs that I could use to take the place of my tulips and do an okay job?
Yeah. So we get that question a lot. Daffodils, for starters, are your best option. Another one is a fritillaria. But you're right. There's not a perfect replacement for a tulip. Hyacinths are good, but replicate that tulip, it's almost impossible.
Are the fritillaria tend to be deer resistant?
They are deer resistant.
Oh, that's fantastic. I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah,
so.
Yep. So that's a good one.
Maybe some allium.
Some alliums. Oh yeah, good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. You have any other bulb questions for him?
No, that was
what's your favorite bulbs?
So I do like the fritillaria alliums, man. Alliums. I mean, just that big purple ball on there. I mean, I got tons of them. I like the lycoris a lot. The magic lilies. So those are really cool. So those would probably be my favorite fall ones. As far as spring ones, I'm a sucker for a dahlia.
Yeah,
I love growing dahlias.
I don't blame you.
I mean, there's so many different types of dahlias, colors, and the flower structure. I mean, they're a lot of fun. I see dahlia collectors, and I understand why.
Yeah.
So dahlias are super cool. Tim and I actually had a chance. We were down at the PPA show. I can't remember the name of that private garden we were at, but they had 850?
Oh yeah.
850 different types of dahlias planted at this garden.
Yeah.
This guy did like the dahlia grafting and like breeding and all this different stuff. I don't know. It was wild. Like we got there just as they were starting to flower.
Yeah. And it's cool when you see those collections, but what I don't like is they're in the straight lines.
Yeah.
Like I want to see those integrated into the gardens personally.
Yeah. So that's how your dahlias are though in the front parking lot.
Yeah. We planted like, I don't know, a few hundred. And yeah, it was just mixed. Just like, let's just see what happens. Mm-hmm. And it turned out pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people talking about dahlias being able to squeaky chair today.
Yeah.
Overwinter a little bit.
Yeah.
Does that go with? Are there certain varieties of dahlias that do better? Because I've seen that, almost like those hardy bananas, you you mulch them well and they're in a protected area, you can get them to come back and not dig them up. So,
that's a great question because I plant a fair amount of dahlias at my house, and I purposely left some, and they all came back.
Oh, okay.
And we used to tell people, similar to the cannas, dig them up, divide them up, and plant them again next year. And I again, maybe the zone that we changed, it's warmer winters, whatever, but yeah, I mean, things are coming back that shouldn't be.
I know people that have cannas that come back every year. They're in slightly protected areas, but nonetheless, we're talking like tropical cannas that overwinter here and come back.
Yeah, we haven't had the roughest of winters.
No, we haven't
either. So who knows if we have one of those crazy ones that maybe that's the year they don't come back.
Yeah, we always go back to that polar vortex we had. What was it, 2 years in a row? It comes back 10, 12 years
ago. Snow rollers, dude.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Snow rollers. Woo! That
Crazy.
was cool stuff.
Yeah.
It was 2 years. We had 2 winters in a row, and it killed red buds and stuff.
Yeah.
It was killing all kinds of stuff.
Knockout roses. Yeah. That was crazy cold. So you mentioned some of your favorite bulbs, but like if I was someone coming in and wanted some daffodils and tulips, because that's the 2 big sellers, obviously, and I was like, I don't know what I should get.
Okay.
What would be like maybe your top 2 or 3 sellers of the daffodils and maybe the top 2 or 3 sellers for the tulips?
So oddly enough, daffodils, there's a crazy amount of varieties of daffodils, something stupid like 20,000 varieties. Like I just know yellow.
Yeah.
Or shades of yellow. But like Dutch Master is a classic yellow. I like White Lion or just a classic mix. I think a mixed daffodil bed is super cool. And the great thing about daffodils is you're going to get 20, 30 plus years out of a daffodil.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
Long lived.
Yeah. And then versus the tulips, you'll be lucky to get like 4 or 5 years out of a tulip.
Lucky.
Yeah. Lucky if you do. And the majority of the customers that we're selling bulbs to in the wholesale side, it's one and done. They're treating them as annuals because everything is a cut flower now. So, but if I was going to go to the tulips, I'm a sucker for the more traditional tulip. If it's a Darwin hybrid or a Triumph, I just like your classic tulip.
Me too. Yeah.
But they have all these doubles,
fringed, like you talked about.
Yeah, there's double early, double late, Fosterias. I mean, there's so many varieties of tulips. It's crazy.
Yeah. So you mentioned their wholesale.
Yep.
And the one and dones. So just real quick for the listeners, kind of give them an idea of some of the, because I know that there's a lot of people that come in and are like, oh, I was at Franklin Park Conservatory and saw the bulb display, or I was, at whatever place and saw that. So who were some, because I know Franklin Park's someone you sell to, right? So who were some of the big hitters? So if people want to go out and see some fall bulb displays, say here in Ohio, who were some of the big ones that you guys are supplying to?
So that's a great question. So we in the wholesale, we only sell to businesses. So if it's cities, garden centers, conservatories, landscapers, those type of people.
Yeah.
So but the really big thing is these cut flower growers, and these people are popping up everywhere right now, which is great. So locally, you mentioned Franklin Park Conservatory. They're a big customer of ours. The city of Dublin, city of Marysville, a lot of municipalities will buy our bulbs. All the roundabouts in Dublin. There was a company called I think it was like Greenscapes or something like that. They bought a bunch of bulbs from us. So that's where you might find some of our bulbs locally.
You do Cincinnati Zoo?
Cincinnati Zoo, thank you. Yeah, they buy a lot of bulbs.
That's a big one.
Yeah. A lot of bulbs.
And I think Tim's wife Megan purchases some bulbs from Berbee for Inniswood.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, through the metro parks.
Very cool, yeah. And that's just locally. So we ship out all over the country.
Yeah.
All 50 states, Alaska, Hawaii. We ship to Canada, Bermuda, Puerto Rico. So, all over the United States. So,
wild.
Yeah.
Bermuda, Bahama.
Yep.
Come on, pretty mama. Yeah.
So, you want to guess how many bulbs we sell in a year?
Oh God!
I always do this on our tours. I always ask this question.
How How many bulbs you sell a year?
God, I'm just thinking about like when I walk through the warehouse, just seeing the crates.
Yeah.
The stacks of crates.
The smart ass in me wants to say 11 million.
You're not that far off.
Okay.
Really?
But
11 million?
11 million.
Yeah.
15 million.
15 million, yeah. 15 million bulbs annually. So
15
Is that
million
true?
bulbs.
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
I
bulbs.
was going to guess like 74,000.
No. Oh gosh, no. We probably ship that out today.
Like I said, I don't have any frame of reference for these
15
things.
million bulbs.
Jesus Christ.
So, like, we talked about. I guess I didn't mention like we sell other things like asparagus and onions and rhubarb and garlic right now. So yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you sell that stuff, but like in the grand scheme of things, if you were drawing up a pie chart of like what is like selling the most, it's fall bulbs.
It's well, fall and spring are almost equal now.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, because dahlias, again, it's these cut flower growers. They're if they're selling them roadside or at the farmers market, wherever they might be selling them at. So yeah.
Cool, man. And I know you guys do some of the small plant stuff too. We've started using you for that at the City of Dublin, using your brother-in-law Dave, who does the small plant stuff. So we order him plugs, but he's ordering him plugs for customers like us. But isn't he also doing like stuff for growers too to finish the stuff?
So yeah, I mean, if you need anything plug, and when you say small plants, we mean plugs, obviously. So. If you're looking for like Lysianthus or, I mean, even us in the garden center, we're using Dave for geraniums and petunias, or if we're looking for perennial plugs.
Yeah.
So we're sourcing all that through Dave there in the office.
Very cool.
Yeah.
When you talked about cut flowers, what if you could say the best bulb for cut flower as far as longevity, how long the flower lasts, versus not good for cut flowers? What are the two you would throw at me there?
I would say it's all about your storage more or less. So if you could harvest a tulip like right when they're like starting to crack a little bit of color, and you cut them, in the storage life in the cooler could be up to a couple weeks.
Okay.
So so as far as bulbs, the big two are obviously the tulips and the dahlias are the two best ones that we sell in the wholesale. But but you could do things like snapdragons and eucalyptus and all sorts of different things, obviously. So
yeah, and you guys have a close. So maybe some of our listeners have heard of like the petal pickers. I know you guys have a pretty tight relationship with them.
Sunny Meadows, they're in Columbus. They're awesome.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, it's really cool. Like with Leo Berbee and kind of in Dutchmill, like the reach is that all of the different parts of the industry that you hit on. It's not just like, oh yeah, we're only selling perennial plugs or annual plugs, but it's like it's everything, and that's really cool. It's like a hub for everything.
And that's what I love most about my job is that anything that Marjolaine gets out of the wholesale, I get to grow it and play with it in the retail. So if it's a new hosta or anything cool, agapanthus, that we get to just grow and give them feedback. So that way, when they're on the phone with a customer, if it's a retailer or grower, that like, hey, try it in a quart, try it in a gallon, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
These new geraniums. So it's a lot of fun.
That is fun.
Yeah.
Cool. You got any other questions for Bob?
I'm seeing our time starting to dwindle, and I want to make an assertion that we are going to have to do another one of these with Bob, because
I agree.
It was very engaging. Bob's got some great vibes coming off of him.
Man. I think it's
dripping. He's dripping with those vibes.
I think it's this Jackie O's Mystic Mama that he brought in here.
I just know you guys like to drink beer with the podcast.
A beer with the podcast.
It takes the edge off a little bit. A beer or two.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Even on that morning when we did, still crank down a beer or two.
Yeah, I think you did. Maybe a high noon and a beer or something. I don't know.
Why not?
Whatever. Yeah, Bob, it's been a lot of fun having you on.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of you guys' podcast.
I know.
I
but,
tell you
like,
guys that every week too.
You've done other podcasts though, and I mean, we're just like so like rookie compared to what you've probably been on before.
No, not at all.
We're going to do this again, and we can maybe hone down the next one into a little bit more of a finite topic. But also on the next one, we're going to have to talk about wooden shoes.
Yeah, wooden shoes would be on that.
We don't have to get into that, so everyone's got time to do the research, but I want to know about the wooden shoes.
I hope some of your some of your listeners have some questions, because I would love to be back.
Yes.
So.
Our listeners are infamous for not having a lot of questions, so hopefully, are you listening?
Yeah.
Ask some damn questions.
So you have asked me questions personally, or whatever. And then it's like Tim's wife, and then maybe
a coworker
or two. And then, but I had one of our listeners from Sunbury, who's an arborist, reach out to me with some questions about street trees and stuff, which was freaking awesome. When that email came in, I'm like, whoa, like fan mail, that sort of thing. Like, so that was super cool. But yeah, we love answering questions and engaging with you all. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know. I don't really have anything else right now. I mean, a lot of what we've discussed today, Bob and I have talked about,
multiple times,
but it's always fun having a conversation with Bob. We have the same conversations all the time. I always love how Bob starts out, Guthrie, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story, Guthrie, But, yeah, so it's been a lot of fun having you on here, Bob, and
it has. I've gotten great vibes off of this, and I'm excited to get this one finalized, published, named. And
dude, Megan, I know that Megan's already going to be loving it.
Megan's been asking us to do this one for like 2 months. She's like, "What about that one with Bob?"
Yeah. Yep. Well, you keep teasing me every time I see you at work.
Well, guess what? Here you are now. So. Cool, man. Well, that kind of does it for us. Bob, again, thanks for being on.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, otherwise, until next week, people, thanks for tuning in and listening.
Thank you. Send us your questions. Thank you for listening. We love you.
Harder +2.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace.